The coal mine fires of Pennsylvania are a forgotten and often unknown phenomenon. When author Natalie Harnett caught wind of these, she gained inspiration to write a novel based on the experiences of people who have lived through the worst of them. Her novel, The Hollow Ground, has been critically acclaimed both nationally and internationally.
Well, I grew up in Queens, New York, but my grandfather lived in the Hawley area. And so since I was a baby, I've been coming to Hawley. I've spent an enormous amount of time here, all my summers, all my vacations. Even once I got into college and then afterwards, I spent a lot of time here. So it's like a second home to me. Really, since I was 11 years old, I started to, write short stories and poetry. So I've written short stories and novels, but The Hollow Ground is my first published novel. So much of my work is set in this area. I have several short stories that are published that were set in the Pocono area, and The Hollow Ground is set in a fictional Carbondale. But since my connection to Hawley is so strong, I'd say a lot of the landscape description, I write a lot of nature description, that comes particularly from the Hawley area. And all of my previous work had been in third person, and I just thought, I think I really want to try first person. And so I knew I wanted to do first person, and I have just always been drawn to Carbondale. It's just a place that, when I would just drive through it, as a kid, that I would just think, well, you could just tell this had been such a booming city at some time, and you could just kind of feel the loss of that. Beautiful homes, I love the steep hills of it. I just thought, I want to, I'm always drawn to setting first. That's what I first choose, is where am I going to place this? And I thought, I would love to do something set in Carbondale. And I thought I want to tell the story of what happened to the coal mine towns once the coal mines shut down. And so then I just started thinking of this young girl's voice, and I usually tell family stories, so I knew it would be a family, and I planted them in Carbondale, and I thought, okay, they will have been coal miners, but now, the coal mines have shut down, so it's just the incredible difficulties of how you survive that. And as I was just kind of researching, I remembered my grandfather's neighbor telling me about homes in Scranton where the floors were too hot to walk on. And that was from the coal mines beneath the homes being on fire. And I thought, wow, that is some image and some metaphor. I thought, I want to set this book in Carbondale, but I think what I'll do is first I'll put the family in one of these Scranton fire homes, and then I'll move them. But as I was researching the Scranton fires, I really found nothing out about them. I couldn't find anything out about them. What I kept finding out about was Centralia, which I had never heard of. But as I started researching Centralia, I was so fascinated, and I partly thought maybe I should just keep them in Centralia, but I thought, no, I still want to tell, that Carbondale story. So then I called the town Centereach in the book, and I put them in a place like Centralia, and I moved them to Carbondale. And then as I wrote almost a whole draft of the novel that way, and then I got pregnant and I panicked that I'd never finished the book, and I thought, okay, let me at least finish my research. So I went to the Carbondale Historical Society, and as I was there researching, I found out about this tremendous fire that Carbondale had, pretty much on par with the Centralia fire. And I can remember sitting there, I can remember the moment, I can see the light coming through the window, and I just realized, wow, this is such a tremendous story. I need to tell this story too. Well, once the book was published, I couldn't get over the tremendous response I was getting from people from Coal Region, Pennsylvania. And, as I was writing the book, of course, I was aware of the economic disaster that took place once the coal mines shut down. But I never really felt that until I started to hear from so many people who came from the area, many of them no longer living in the area, just responding to the book and to the way that people spoke, and a lot of them not even knowing about the fires, actually. Or, they knew, maybe they'd heard a little bit about the fires, but didn't know that much. So that was the initial impact of just hearing from so many people from coal region Pennsylvania. But then I also started to hear from people who had lived through the fires or whose family had lived through the fires. And so one of the people was a woman whose family lived in one of the first houses demolished in Carbondale. And she was a child at the time, and she said, so her whole childhood, her house was on a tilt like this. And she just thought that was normal. They used to roller skate down the hallways. They had government officials who would come in to test the air periodically throughout the day. And she said when they would come in the air would test bad, they would go to their safe house, which was her grandmother's house, which was right next door. But she also said there was a huge sinkhole in her backyard where you could look down and see the fire burning. And if I had heard that story, before I'd finished writing the book, I probably would have included that, but I wonder that might have even been too much. I mean, that's just, so striking an image and so powerful. That's another thing, in a way, I'm glad I started to hear these stories after, because I would have wanted to include so many of them. That's the interesting thing about the book, is that there's nothing I made up in it, yet sometimes I'll hear from people, this couldn't have happened, this never could, take place, and you're just making it up, and not at all, actually, but it does come off as if it's supernatural. Well, I have a lot of information on my website, which is natalieharnett.com, and on the website are pictures of the Carbondale dig out. There's links to different articles about the coal mine fires, and there's also book club questions. There's an educator's guide, and lots of other information.